Everyone, happy Friday. We hope everyone has
Hey,
had a great week. As you can see, I have my partner in crime as usual, Cindy DeMant, and we have one of our guests so far, Cristie at Meeting Wellness. We should be having Ellie here shortly with Nourishment Redacted. So she's just running a little bit late, which is totally fine. We're very much go with the flow over here. So let's go ahead and kind of see who is in the chat here, and then we'll kind of get things jumped off and started. Here we have Dustin, Keto Simple.
you beat us here.
You did, Dustin. Good job.
You were very, very timely. We appreciate that. Here we have Jeff. Hi, everybody. Welcome, Jeff. Lynn is here. Thank you so much, Lynn, for your continued support as always. Hi, Cindy, Sana, Dustin, and everyone. Welcome,
That's how to put
welcome.
our names together, Cinna.
Right? And then we have Susie. Hi, all. Happy Friday.
Hi, Susie.
Hey, Susie. Susie was a guest. So if anyone has not checked out her interview with us, you can find that on either end, Cindy DeManch's channel or on my channel to check out her interview. She had an amazing journey to share with us all.
Yes.
Here we have Deb Riley. Cristie, if you're
Who
not
was
aware, this is
driving
Cindy's.
on her way here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I was
is
like,
the
I'm
one that's
pretty
holding
sure
us
that's
way.
Cindy's sister. Yes,
Yeah.
awesome. Hi, Deb. I heard you're driving.
Yep. Safe travels, Deb. Jason is here. Just Jason, Keto,
Yay.
and more. Good evening. Welcome, Jason. So we just have a few just saying hi to one another.
So, what's new with you, Cristie?
Oh my gosh. Well, my favorite thing that's kind of new still, I guess, is that my son started eating a proper human diet. It's been a
Oh, yeah.
little over 2 months now. And he's 15 years old and he has ADHD along with some sensory integration processing. And we've tried everything. And when I say everything, I mean counseling, occupational
Mm,
therapy. We've tried, different plans with the school, 504 plan, IEP, speech therapy. Uh, I don't know. There's probably more, right? Then all the ADHD strategies, timers, all of that stuff, and including even medication at the very end there. And nothing. I wouldn't even say it even helped a little bit, like because he was very against it. He's tends to be a little, not wanting to. If an adult says it, he doesn't really want to listen to it. And he's been that way for a while. He would, when he was younger, he had extreme meltdowns, extreme. When he was really little, well, like one time he pulled my glasses off and broke them, like extreme.
yes.
When he, because his emotional dysregulation was very severe. Um, and then as he got older, that just turned into like everything was a fight, even things that are just normal parenting things like time to take a shower or brush your teeth
Hmm.
or get ready for school. He was going to fight you. He was going to fight you. And ever since we changed his diet, he's watched me do this since last, well, I guess February. So a little over a year, if you count my months on keto. And, I just sort of mentioned to him that a ketogenic diet has been shown to help with like mental things like ADHD. Would you want to try it for 30 days and just see how you do? And, he basically said yes. And so, if we could figure out a way that he wouldn't have to miss his ice cream, that was his
Yeah.
one, thing.
Keto
And
cow.
yeah, I know I
Just
got to do,
saying.
I know.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
so
way.
we found some, keto type desserts that he can still do. And as far as everything else, he's
Right.
started eating a lot more meat. So he really likes chuck roast. He really likes picanha. He never ate eggs before. He like today he came out and asked for eggs. Can you make some eggs? And I was like, sure,
Nice
So he
being
eats
the
a lot of
chihuahua.
eggs. He eats a lot of sausage. And then for the other things, we've done some, like some replacements. Like we do the carnivore pizza instead of, with the chicken crust and that kind of thing, which he loves that. He'll make himself the little carnivore pizza pockets with the cheese, surrounding the pepperoni and sausage. Yeah. And he can make those himself. And so, he's now been doing this for over 2 months, and it's like a night and day difference. Like he doesn't get angry. He doesn't like fight. He's on time for school.
Yeah.
He cleaned his room of his own volition. And I mean, the last thing he did was his closet. His closet was the last part left. And he filled our entire like trash receptacle. And I was like, that goes outside, like the big bin that the trash people come and take once a week. And I wasn't even mad. I'm like, we have nowhere to put our trash this week. And I don't care because it was all the stuff that came out of his closet. And that was just unheard of because he was sort of like never wanting to get rid of stuff before.
Welcome, Ellie, to the chat. I didn't want to keep her back there.
Yeah. Don't keep her back.
Thank you so much.
Let her light shine.
Nobody puts Ellie in the corner.
No, absolutely not.
But that's
Thank
so
you so
heartwarming to me, Cristie, because as you know, I shared on my interview that I had with you as well as Ellie, we have our own 15-year-old on this end. And very much so, going the route of starting him on a ketogenic diet, stop his seizures.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And that's very much, it could be, neurological, but then like some consider that also like a behavior thing as well. They think that something, behavioral is happening throughout the day and might trigger it was like also kind of like another kind of possibility they put out there. But that right there is like so touching to me because especially to see him start as a teenager, that's huge right there. Because luckily I was able to start ours while he was still young before he got to those teen years. And, when they're teenagers, they could be very adamant. They could be their own little adults, Mr. and Mrs. Know-it-alls. So the fact that he's, picking up like that like he's making stuff himself and taking the initiative, that's huge right there.
Hey, I'm ecstatic that my 40-something-year-old sons
and
my 20-year-old granddaughter are all doing keto.
And that's difficult.
Sorry, I'm like, my voice is messed up.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Cindy is under the weather, so we're definitely going to send her healing, speedy recovery vibes.
Thank you, Ellie.
Of course. Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm so sorry for being late. We had some little toddler issues that mommy and daddy both had to be there, and we were helping her through that, fixing up dinner. I do apologize for being late. I feel like
I
feel much better now that I'm hanging out with you guys.
Hey,
no,
life
it's
happens,
okay. Yes, and that's exactly what I told everybody, that you are running a couple minutes late, which is no biggie to us because we are very much like go with the flow. Life is going to happen.
Oh yeah.
So that's to be expected. No, we're so happy you made it though.
Me too.
Jay, are you on speed?
I had to ask him what he meant by that. He's talking about because all the lives I'm doing. I'm like, I'm off school this week. It's my spring break. So he's not wrong. And then I've got invited by Cammie at Last Day of Normal. She's doing some canning and she wants to do it live. And she invited me to like kind of be the host because when she's canning stuff, she can't also like run the chat. And then she just kept asking me. So we've done 3 of those this week. And so, I've been live.
Those are fun.
A lot.
You should check those out on their channels, the replays. You'll learn something. I'm definitely learning. It's great.
Yeah, I learned a ton. Someday I might start canning. I don't know if it'll be before I retire from teaching, but she's inspiring me. It's pretty cool. She's canning meat too.
Oh,
really? Yeah.
That's the best part.
She's canning meat. And you can just put it in raw because it goes in the pressure canner and it cooks as it cans. It's really cool. So.
Yeah, because you're talking about like old age practices. Wow.
Yeah, and it used to seem intimidating to me, but she explains all the steps and it's really cool. So. Hey,
Uncle
Uncle
Big
Big
Guy,
Guy.
Arden.
Hey.
Howdy all. Hi, Sana, Cindy, Cristie, and Ellie. Thank you so much, Arden. We're happy that you're here. We have Sharon in the house. Hello from
Hey,
Buckeye,
Sharon.
Arizona. Welcome, welcome.
So,
Yeah,
Ellie,
here
what's
he's
new
giving
with you these
explanation.
days?
What's new with me? Well, we just recently got through a horrible stomach virus. Like, although carnivore makes you very healthy, it doesn't protect you from, you're not invincible. So we got hit and we got hit hard. And I'm so glad that this week we've been like healthy for pretty much like since like halfway of last week. I've been better, and but then my husband and my son were still like having some symptoms and stuff like that. So I feel like today is like the first day where we're like, okay, I think are we back to normal? It's Friday, ready for the weekend. I've been, you guys were talking about having your kids on carnivore, and this is something that I've recently been struggling with. I've been trying to pursue it, and most meals are like all meat, like there's many weeks in a row, but then sometimes those carbs, they just sneak into the house. And not really. I mean, we bring them into the house. Like my husband's like, oh, I want to have this or I want to have that. And, I feel like I have this like conflicting mindset, because it's like, of course I want to give her the most nutrient dense food. I'm talking most about my daughter. My son eats everything, but every single meal is a struggle. Like what we were doing earlier, that was the struggle. And I'm not trying to put her down. She's so incredibly smart and wonderful, but like, I don't know, have you guys like, not even just like about carnivore, do you ladies, I'm sure you have like had issues with like, motivating your kid to eat the food and stuff like that, because I feel like sometimes it's like pulling teeth. And she feels better after she eats, carnivore meal. She feels better versus like a carby meal. So I'm just curious what you think, because that's on my heart right now. I'm like,
What carbs are coming to the house still? Like what carbs
well,
are they enjoying?
it would probably be like a cup of white rice, and then I put like lots of salt and butter in it, or like some udon noodles, and that's it. Like we're pretty much like bare bones over here in regards to that. And it's not every day. I mean, when we were sick, I was giving them a little rice because we were having some loose stools and stuff, just to kind of try to give them something to bulk up on. But for the most part, like, I think they've been eating this way for the most part like 7 months. And maybe they've had like, it's like once a month or twice a month they'll have something. But then when they do that, it's like they can't moderate. I can't expect them to moderate. I can't moderate. And so it's just like, it's difficult. And I'm like, well, why did I even bring it in the first place? But it's like, I want them to enjoy it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm conflicted about how to do
Have
that.
you tried because Hearts of Palm, so there's like the brand Palmini.
Oh yeah.
They have like a riced Hearts of Palm that's really good. Oh, there's another
so does
brand
the
out
skinny
there.
pasta.
Skinny pasta.
It's skinny, has the rice out also.
There's another brand, I can't even remember it, but it's also like another version of like there's a lot of different brands when it comes to Hearts of Palm, and they have so many varieties. Like they have the rice, they have like fettuccine noodles,
That would be
spaghetti type
great.
of like pasta noodles. I would say give that a try. You definitely have to kind of have it go through like a process, because like we rinse it, because like that liquid that it's in kind of has like a little bit of a stench. Because it's definitely like preserving in that it's liquid.
Absolutely.
So we wash it really well, boil it, and we make a bunch of stuff out of it. Like we make like a cheesy rice once in a while. We'll do kind of like a Asian like fried rice, and you could even add like beef in it, any protein in it, and kind of do like a whole fried rice out of it to kind of doctor it up for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But like that's what I would say, because I think that was like the more simple thing for us. Was I focused kind of like on what was the favorite carbs, and thinking of what some simple substitutes, like something I didn't have to spend all day in the kitchen something
Yeah.
that was going to be very much like stress free for me to be able to kind of like take on. Because if they end up liking it, you don't want to feel like, oh my gosh, like this is a recipe. I got to spend like 1 or 2 hours
Mhm.
because now I got them hooked on it.
I
But I
know,
would say
right?
try that. I would
Okay.
definitely say try that. And
I
maybe
It's
agree.
kind of
definitely a lot better.
Yeah, I was just going to
yes.
say I agree with Sana. So with my son at this point
Mhm.
now, he doesn't even, I mean, he had 2 events that I thought, okay, this might like derail him. He got invited to a friend's house, and for sure I knew there was going to be teenager food. I didn't say anything to him about that. I just said, "Hey, do you want to bring some food?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, just what I normally bring for my lunch, which is like Teton sausage and some cheese
Mhm.
and some pepperoni slices." And so I just packed that for him, and then after I was like, "So, how'd it go?" And he said, "Oh yeah, they had." I said, "Was there food over there?" And he said, "Yeah, they had pizza, but I just ate, what you packed me."
Okay.
Mhm.
And then
Hey.
my other son picked him up from school because he's 18, picked him up from school and then decided, because he's standard American still, and he
Right.
decided he was going to go through McDonald's. And I was like, wish I would have known that, because I was already heating up some picanha, for
Yeah.
Zach to have. And I thought, well, we'll see how this goes. If he sneaks a couple of French fries from his brother or whatever.
Yeah.
And I asked both of them like separately, and they're like, no, he didn't have anything, and he just came home and ate his picanha. But I think, Ellie, that it's because like I did find him, I did the chicken nuggets for him, that's with
Right.
the chicken and the pork
Mm.
panko and the cheese. And then I just did the chicken tender recipe recently, and then he can still have his pizza. So he's not like deprived of pizza, because we did something similar to what Sana is saying and swapped it out instead of
Mhm.
letting him go back and like having those carbs sometimes.
Yeah, I have a lot of guilt with that. It's like, it's like I used to have the mindset of like, oh, if we eat out, which is so rare now, like we really don't do it. But like last night, my husband was like, "You're going live. I'll take the kids. I want to take them out," and I just let him make the decision.
Right.
He knows what we eat, and
No.
they made a decision to go get rice, and like at a Japanese place or whatever. And I was like, okay, well that's like one little bowl. And then he ended up coming home with some groceries, and that's where the noodles came from. Because he was like, "Oh, I'll just make it for me." And then she
Right.
was
Right.
so sad with her meal. Like, I made salmon, I made cheesy scrambled eggs, I made burgers, and it was just like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. And, it's like, it comes like you have to like, kind of I don't know what's the best way to say it, but it's like, you want to encourage her,
Mhm.
make her own decisions, but then you
Yes.
also don't want to be like, you have to eat it, because if not,
Yeah.
then she's going to be starving and then she's going to wake up all
Right.
night. Like, I know what's best for her. And so it's like, please, like, you need to do this. And then I was like, "Ugh, I'm just going to make her. She ate a lot of burgers, a large portion
Yeah.
of burger. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make her some noodles, just like, let's just go to bed. Please. I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. Like I don't pretend to be perfect, and
Right.
like I don't know. So
I
thank
mean,
you
I
for the
think like very
suggestions.
much so you're doing an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
You're doing an
you.
amazing job. I mean, both you and your husband, because you're both there for your kids, period. That right there
Mhm.
already, you guys are doing a great job. So definitely do not be hard on yourself because it's not easy. It's definitely not easy because you don't also want them to gain like a bad relationship with food either.
That's what I'm worried
Because
about.
I had to be very careful. I had to be very, very careful because here, I had the preteen kiddo, and then I had the youngest. At that time, he was just about to turn 2. He was being breastfed, but very much at that point, like he was starting to eat solids. So he was fortunate that he was able to
Mhm.
start proper human diet, and he didn't know any different, like about what is out there for standard American diet. So for him, it was a little bit easier, but more so for the older one, I had to be very careful because I had to be very careful with like my terminology because I didn't want him to think like I'm bad mouthing any foods and having him, have that kind of complex about the foods. I just told him that there were better choices, that some foods can get us sick and kind of like worded it that way. But yours are so young, they're so little. I would just kind of doctor up like alternatives to make it enjoyable for like what toddlers like. Another good option for everybody is our kids, they love spaghetti squash. And that's so
Hmm.
simple to do. That is
I've
like
made that before.
so easy to do. And like with that, you can do so many different options, like a
Hmm.
spaghetti and meatball night. You can like turn it into like a macaroni and cheese kind of thing. You could bake it into like a
Yeah.
casserole.
It's
So
so
many different
funny. It's
options.
so funny you're mentioning all these things, and I was like, oh yeah, I did all that when I did keto all those
Mm-hmm.
years ago. So like,
Yeah.
she's just so. I talk about all. I feel bad because I'm always talking about it on my channel. I'm like, she's so picky. Like if it's not like crunchy enough,
Yeah.
or it's not the right shape, or if it smells weird, like it's just like every
Mm-hmm.
single thing, and it's like
That's
I'm
toddlers for you.
noticing that I'm getting a little triggered. I'm getting triggered by it because it's like I come from like I don't know the idea is like this is our food. We're grateful
Yeah.
for our food. It's like obviously
Yeah.
she doesn't know all the things, it's like we make the money and then you have to save the money and you portion it out and you say, okay, this is groceries. She doesn't know all those things and I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to put that on her obviously, but then it's just like can you just eat the food, please? But I'm noticing that I'm getting a little triggered, and I'm like, okay, I need to be the adult. I need to take a
Yeah.
step back and like reevaluate because it's getting a little too easy to like
Mm-hmm.
crack a little bit.
Does she
But yeah,
like
I appreciate that.
does she like chicken nuggets?
She not really. I've made her. I know it's hard. If it
It's
was
No,
up to
I'm
her,
just
she
tricky.
kidding.
would. If it was
Whatever
up
she
to her,
likes,
yeah, I was
whatever
gonna
she
say it's a
likes, if
little.
she likes the crunchy,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Neely, Indigo Neely, has a great breading recipe that's just egg white powder, gelatin, and pork rind crumbs. It
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
adheres to everything, whether it's fish or chicken or whatever. So if she likes the
Yeah.
crunch factor, mix up some of that breading and use it for her food. I mean, you
That's a
can
great
bread
idea.
almost anything,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's true.
and it's really good too. It's just
Yeah. There's a bunch out there. Because Anita, the ketogenic woman, she also has like a batter that you
mhm.
can do kind of
That's
like,
true.
fish with and stuff like that.
Yeah, both
I
of them are carnivores, so
yeah.
it's like
I think that's the biggest thing. Like, if they eat all the meat, that's great. But if they need to have like those keto options, it's still
Mm-hmm.
proper human diet. Because even
yeah.
That's true.
imagine, like when I turned carnivore, still, yeah, like my husband and my kids, yeah, did their amount of meat increase? Yeah, because that was what I was cooking. And if I'm the cook of the house, well, you know what? I'm only cooking one dinner. I'm not cooking separate dinners for everybody. Um,
True.
so very much so, like they ate a bulk of meat, and then I did like whatever like little simple like keto side dishes for them because I still wasn't gonna spend a bunch of time in the kitchen. I was gonna want to embrace the simplicity. Here we have dark carnivore, which is Charlie was raised on the eat
Charlie.
everything on your plate attitude, which I'm consciously not passing on to my daughter. Ladies, what are your beliefs about when your kids should stop eating prepared meals? So,
Yeah,
Cristie,
so
we'll have you go first.
absolutely. I was going to go first anyway. I was
Yes.
just going to jump right in there.
I knew you were ready.
I'm ready. Yeah, I just because I had the same upbringing, Charlie. So, I mean, there were nights where I was at that dinner table for hours because I would not eat the peas or the fish, the things that I don't like. Still don't like them today. So, it did not help me learn to like fish. Sitting at the table the entire night until bedtime. But yes, I was very much raised that you don't leave the dinner table until you've cleaned your plate. And I don't blame my parents at all. That's, I think, how they were raised, right? So I don't think they were doing it to be, mean or anything like that. I
Right.
had good parents, don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But I knew for sure that I had now granted, I don't have daughters, I have sons, but after getting to my teenage years, I did have a very unhealthy relationship with food, whether that was connected to that practice or not, I don't know. But you know, I did get into a very much of like, I'm gonna be able to restrict my calories if I want to. And so yeah, I got into that very strong, you know, binge restrict. So I have never done that to my kids, and to this day they're very much like, you know, I only want this much. Or like the other day, my son took his eyes were bigger than his stomach. He took a ginormous helping of chuck roast, and then he came out and he was like, I can't eat all of this. What do I do? And that, because that usually doesn't happen, because usually I'll portion it, you know, for him. But it was just in the crock pot, and I'm like, oh, no worries. We'll just cover it. We'll stick it in the fridge and you can finish it later. So he went and warmed it up, I think like the next day. Still couldn't finish it all. We had more than 2 servings worth in that bowl. And then he didn't ask me, he just put it back in the fridge. And so I think, you know, both of them are just very, you know, you'll often find even with standard American diet, even with junk food, because I kind of did that their whole life. I didn't ever force them to finish anything. Very different from my own history with food. You know, they would get candy, let's say at Halloween, and months later there would still be candy that they wouldn't have eaten, because it's not like, oh, I have this candy and I'm just gonna, they just never got that mindset. And it didn't really click with me until I started eating this way and thinking, wow, you know, and really looking and being like, you know, they can open a bag of Doritos, you know, eat a few, and then the bag will just be sitting there. Like if I open a bag of Doritos back in my proper, or before my proper human diet time, I mean, that whole thing would be gone. Like the whole thing, no question. And they just don't do that. And I wonder if it has, I don't know, but I think hopefully, you know, it has something to do with, I've never made them, I'm not the clean your plate club. If you don't eat it, you're not hungry, and you must not need it then, you know. But at the same time, they weren't ever grazing all day. It was very much like we eat at meal times, and that's when we eat. So I think it's been healthy for them, because that's how they've been their whole lives. And they're now 18 and 15, and they don't feel like they have to finish something when they open it, you know?
Very great points. Ellie, what's your take on this?
So I was kind of in this way of eating as well, you know, eat everything on your plate. But I think it's because I used to feel really good when I ate all of my food, because I would get that praise. And I think that ended up translating later on into life. Like, I eat a large amount of food, I'm happy, I get praise, you know, and like, so because I always ate my food, I never got punished for it. And so I think it's ironic now I have the opposite with my daughter. And so sometimes I'm like, you know, like I said, I'm being 100% honest. You know, I get a little triggered, and I'm like, just, you gotta eat you have to eat your food. But then I also know that that's not the right way to go about it. And there's some days where I'm really good about it, and I'm like, oh, are you full? Because that's what mommy wants. Mommy wants you to be full and have energy, and then you can go do whatever, you know, play with your kitchen or something like that. But then there's some days where I'm just like, I know what's going to happen in the future if you don't eat now. So it's like, here, can I feed you? Can we put a little cream cheese on it? Can we eat it with some butter? Like, I'm trying really hard to just get her to eat sometimes. But then, you know, because because she tells me she's hungry. You know, it's not like she's like, oh, I'm just not hungry, because I can tell when she's like, oh, I'm good, I'm not hungry. And then, because she's always hungry, I feel like, because she's just not getting enough food. And so I think
toddler stage is so tricky, because they're very much grazers at that toddler stage.
And my son, you know, he's been eating proper human diet since he was, you know, first foods were steak and eggs, and he's been that way, and he's had very, very little carbs, like, if anything, you know, very, very little, compared to my daughter, who she came into it after she was 3. And so, you know, she already had like the taste. I think that when, like, the first few foods you give them, it kind of sets their tone. Like, her first food was a sweet potato, you know, versus my son, who had steak and eggs. So I do definitely see that. I think that this is a way of eating that we should stop. And I think that you should try to teach them, basically what you're teaching them is intuitive eating. You're saying, I'm full, I feel satisfied, especially if we're eating a lot of animal foods. I think that's very filling. So yeah, that's what I think.
No, very, very good point of view. Cindy, I don't want to strain your voice too much, but did you want to chime in on this?
When my kids were little, I mean, I wasn't doing keto or anything. I was just whatever.
Mhm.
But I was also you whatever's on your plate you eat.
Mm.
And the trick there was try not to fill it up so much so you don't have so much to eat. but, but with my kids, I gave them whatever they wanted to
Yeah.
eat because I wasn't going to do that fight. But
Mhm.
I wasn't on that spectrum. This
Right.
was so many years ago now. My kids are in their 40s. So with my grandkids, when I started keto, some of them were living with us and they ate the protein and the side that I could eat.
Mm.
And then if they wanted rice or potatoes, I would make it for them. It's like they're going to eat it anyway. If they're not home and they're going out, they're going to eat it.
Right,
It's what
right.
they're with their parents who wasn't doing keto then. Excuse me. Yeah, so I knew they were going to get it anyway, but I just didn't have it in the
Mhm.
house. So, there's that with Elliot. If you just don't have any there, and like Sana was saying, there's so many options for other pastas and rices that are keto friendly that, let her have them, but yeah. I mean, I have a box of minute rice in my closet for our dog when he gets sick
Yeah.
because boiled hamburger and rice is really recommended by the vets
Mhm.
when they have an upset stomach. So that's been in there. I love rice. Do you think I've touched it? No. I don't care. But other than making it for him when he was sick. But yeah, with the kids, you got to be really, really careful, but you should never feel guilty because, we can only do what we can with what we've
Mhm.
got. You don't want to be that iron fist with her because then she'll grow up thinking, I can't eat this. I can't eat that. I can't eat this. I can't eat. And she's going to rebel even more.
Mhm.
You don't want that because there's nothing worse than a rebellious
Yeah.
teenager.
Yeah, you gotta
Nothing
really
worse.
be careful because, a lot of times, it can trigger eating disorders. I had to be really careful, even like personally me myself, like because when we did start off keto, who was I tracking like nobody's business, everything that I ate. So best believe, Charlie, when it comes to this eat everything on your plate attitude, I grew up in a very strict Muslim household. So, yeah, it was very much engraved into us. Waste not, want not. We were firsthand shown because our parents had us go on a trip. My mother's from Turkey, so we went to Turkey. My father's from India, so they took us to India. They showed us firsthand what it looked like. Like we barely spent any time in the tourist areas. We were more so focused on learning truly about the culture. And the only way you can learn about that is if you go to the small country type of areas. So, firsthand, our parents wanted to show us what it was to live in these other countries and kind of really show us how they were raised. So, very much when it comes to the aspect of food, that was very much so the way it was. Like you had to be careful how much you took on your plate because then you were told, well, you shouldn't have took it. Well, now you got to eat it. So here
Right.
you're forcing yourself to eat it. So very much so, like I really think that very much in itself can cause eating disorder. But then again, we got to be careful because we have to more so teach about like really truly what your hunger cue is. And that was really difficult for me going from like keto to carnivore because, now like you're eating everything that's zero carbs and, everyone's telling you eat until you're comfortably stuffed. And that could be a dangerous thing for some of us because some of us very much can eat to the point that we get sick. But it's almost like you have to experiment with what your personal limit is. And it does adjust itself because myself, as well as, everyone that I've seen feedback from, you do end up getting to the point where you can only eat so much. Like you're truly feeling like, oh my gosh, like this is what it really feels like to be comfortably stuffed because I cannot stand to take another bite. Like, and what I have in front of me looks so delicious, but I cannot even pick up another forkful of it because I am just so full. But
Right.
I think it's just also dependent on age. We want to have the young ones have a good relationship when it comes to food, when it comes to the portion and stuff like that. So I would say, pass it on for whatever is age appropriate to have those discussions, is what I would say. But definitely when it comes to the eat everything on your plate attitude, we definitely have to end that cycle because it's something that was very much passed on with generation. And it's really, if you're not hungry anymore, you should be really truly stopping.
Yeah, I am absolutely guilty of that because I made my kids when they
Hmm.
wanted something more. I said, "You take
Yeah,
it. You're going to eat it,"
you're gonna eat it. Yup.
because I didn't want it wasted. So
Hmm.
Mhm.
things are just too, and especially nowadays,
Yeah.
things are too expensive
Right.
to get it and throw it away.
Yeah.
Because it's sitting there on their plate. Now they're not
Yeah.
eating.
Yeah. Because my mother,
So
that's very much what she told us. She's like, if you
Mhm.
took it and put it on your plate, I can't put it with the rest of the leftovers. Like you're gonna have to eat it.
right.
She was not gonna throw it in the trash. So it was very much that mentality.
The other
Lasty and
thing,
normal, welcome.
Hi,
the
Go
other
ahead,
Candy.
thing,
Cindy.
Hey, Kim.
Ellie, that when you said when she does eat this stuff, she's hungry again. Shortly after.
Mm.
That's because, and we all know, carbs crave carbs.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's
Yeah,
eating a carby food, she's going to be hungry again
Oh
right.
yeah.
because it's going to, she wants it more and she wants it
Yeah.
more. That's just normal behavior
Hmm.
when it
Mhm.
comes to carbohydrates,
Yeah.
even if they're the good ones versus
Hmm.
the bad ones.
Yeah,
It's
I just try to say like you need to finish your protein first and then we can have something else afterward if we do have it. I like to use like the terminology that like rice and noodles because that's all and bread and stuff like that. They're sometimes food. It's something that we sometimes can eat, but if we eat a lot of it, mommy and daddy used to be very sick, and when we decided to add more animal products she knows what that is. She knows what carbohydrates are. She knows what fat is. She knows what protein is. Like she
Yeah.
knows all the words, and I'm very proud of her for that. But yeah, I like to use the sometimes food kind of terminology, and it was really funny. I got her like a little wooden I like to do wooden toys, so I got her this little tea set that has, it came with like little treats and stuff, and she was like,
Mhm.
"Mommy, this is not healthy. It's all carbohydrate."
I love that.
And it was really funny. But I did get them like another little set that had the salmon, the steak, the fried egg, and stuff like that. But she was just like, "Yeah, I don't want that. I just want to play with my tea set." So I don't know if I'm trying, guys, because like she doesn't eat any like sugary stuff at all. Like the
Mhm.
worst is like a berry, and once it's gone, like we buy our groceries for the month, and once it's gone, it's gone, you
It's
know?
on you.
So I definitely need to just make sure that the other stuff is out of the
Mhm.
house, and I do that. I'll try them. She's not really into veggies, but I will definitely try them, and I'll let you guys know. So
Yeah.
thanks for
Definitely
that.
for that age, you're gonna definitely have to doctor it up because that's very much so. Like what I had to do early on,
Mhm.
you have to doctor it up. To their like standard American diet stuff, you have to doctor it up. It sounds kind of like horrible in a way, but like think of it this way. It's still the real food approach. So, even if you have to doctor it up, so be it. It's still the healthy
Mhm.
ingredients, the real food ingredients compared to the processed stuff. So even if you had it doctored up, it's still no biggie.
There's
And
a
they're
good
gonna they're gonna
question
be
for you.
more appealing to it.
Go ahead. Does she like pancakes?
She does. I've been making Courtney Luna's carnivore bread recipe. I make it
Okay.
into like I just uploaded a video about that, and I make that into French toast, and it's just eggs, cottage cheese, pork rind crumbs, which I make myself, and then and melted butter. And you make that into a batter. You bake it as a bread, and then you slice it up and you fry it. She eats that. I will make it. I don't care if it's 12 eggs to
No.
make a loaf. Yes, that's right. It's 12 eggs to
Right,
make
right.
one loaf.
Yeah.
That's one swap. Like, so I was gonna say that's definitely like breakfast is good if we have the French
Hmm.
toast and we have and the sausage.
Yeah.
That's good. She's been enjoying. I've been making kefta for her. You know what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been making well, Americanized version, but I've been making
Hmm.
kefta for her, and she's been enjoying that. It's basically like Turkish meatballs. My husband taught me how to make it, but with very little seasoning because we do less
Hmm.
seasoning here. And so I'm still trying to get those dinners down. I need to find the perfect meal, for all. I don't want to talk about her the whole day. So if anyone wants, we
No.
can
No,
talk
yeah,
about
it'll
something
it'll
else.
definitely come into place because think of it this way, even us as adults when we were standard American diet, we were
Mhm.
very much like toddlers still. We grazed all the time. It's like it was never enough. Like especially if you were doing something like for me, it was like I could be reading a book, I could be watching TV, had my snacks there because I was very
Mhm.
much a savory food addict. When it came to the standard American diet. I didn't care too much for the sweets, but guess what? Still yet, I was still having my body with every episode of that snacking. I was affecting my glucose. And then you have that period in time where you're having that high spike and then you're having that plummet once it kind of, starts calming down in your body and stuff like that. And then guess what? That's the point in time where you're like, I need something else. Like I'm hungry again. Because your body had like empty carbs. So we went through it even as adults. So that's why, more so like we can't be so hard on the kids for like we were addicted.
We're
And
bad.
that's very much so like these companies, they know what they're doing with their ingredients. Because it's very much triggering to our bodies, our mentality that, oh my gosh, it tastes so good. I can't get enough of it. Don't take it away from me.
Mhm.
Because look, we even have grown adults that have a hard time going on the proper human diet, any spectrum of the proper human diet, because they feel deprived. So very
Absolutely.
much so, it's not just the children. So don't, you know, anyone in the chat, do not be hard on yourself. Definitely do not be hard on yourself. Like think
No.
about like how far we've come when it comes to how much knowledge we have now. So you have all the resources. Like you definitely have all the resources that you need when it comes to anybody trying to transition themselves or their kids. All the resources out there. Just take your time. Don't be hard on yourself. In time, it will all come together. Like Cristie and I, we've gone through it with our kids. So most definitely, like we can vouch. Like it seems difficult in the beginning, but things just click. Like one day things just click and you're just kind of taken back like, oh, okay, like I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to leave this alone because it's working as it should. And you just kind of go with the flow at that point in time. We have
I
Gail
was just
sharing.
I was just gonna say another avenue for great recipes is Chris Cooking Nashville.
Yeah,
He's
Right.
they're
got
simple.
his
Yeah.
pancake recipe, which is why I asked. The first time I made that, and my husband tried them, he said, "Now those are pancakes.
Oh, nice.
They are extremely good. That's just it's crazy.
Yeah, he
I don't know
has a
how
lot of
he
easy,
does it,
simple
but it's
recipes.
just
Yep.
crazy. Yeah.
Gail here sharing in my house, it was just try it. Then you
Mhm.
could say you didn't like it and wasn't forced to eat it. Yeah, that's a really good mentality as well because that's the other thing too. Like if it doesn't even taste good to you and you're being forced to eat it just because that was what was cooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tricky one as well. Here we have Scott in the house. Hello, one and
Hey,
all.
Scotty.
Welcome, welcome. Happy Friday. We have a few saying hello to each other. Here we have Tuber Chat, Connect and Grow, Word Up. Welcome, welcome to the chat. Here we have Scott sharing, my wife had a drawer full of treats for the kids and they had full-time access. Drove me crazy until I realized the kids were not eating the junk because it wasn't denied. To this day, they are good. You see?
Interesting.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's weird because even like for our son, he had a lot of complaints, in the beginning, a lot of complaints. And it's just, I'm telling you, it's just like something clicked. And then one day it's like the complaint stopped. He was enjoying everything he was having because I think because we kind of focus on the simple substitutes, so he didn't feel any deprivation at all. Like he didn't feel like anything was missing, so to speak, because like all those like little holes we were making of taking things away, things were getting filled in those places. Um, so very much so, it's kind of like we kept him with like a full on puzzle piece and didn't just kind of leave holes in what he was, used to. But that's the thing. It's like they just kind of come to a point where they don't have any interest. Because for me, like I said, I'm not a sweets person, but oh my goodness, did I love like cookies and like chewy type of candy growing up? But even for me, like in my teenage years, I did not enjoy it anymore. I don't know if it was like more so like taste buds change or something, but yeah, it just comes to a point where you go through like a transitioning phase, like just naturally on your own. Thank
Yeah,
you so much. We
my
appreciate you
son
for the
feels
chat.
comfortable now. So when he misses something, which
Yeah.
hasn't happened, but toward the beginning, he would let me know. So like one of the things he told me, I don't know, maybe 3, 4 weeks in, he was like, I miss my yogurt because he used to eat like sugary, vanilla
Oh
yogurt.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I bought some like whole Greek yogurt.
Right, right.
And I showed him the difference. Like I showed him the labels. I
Yeah.
was like, look at the carbs, and he adds a little vanilla extract
Hmm.
and some allulose to it. He likes it just fine. And he used to eat that other yogurt every day, and he doesn't eat it every day, but like when he wants his yogurt now, and it's like
Right.
grass-fed
Uh-huh.
whole Greek yogurt, a little
Yeah.
allulose, a little vanilla, and he knows I showed him how to do
Hmm.
it, how to stir it, and he likes it just fine. And
Yeah.
yeah, he doesn't miss it. And for a while there were still some of those old yogurts in the fridge. They just sat there. Like he never went for them. And then they expired and I threw them away. But
Yeah.
so he feels comfortable coming to me and saying, I miss this food or that food, and then I, find a solution. But that's how I know that he must be feeling better. Like he's
Mhm.
recognizing that he feels better because he doesn't try to go back to his old foods. He'll just let me know, what can we do about this or that,
Yeah.
that he
I
still
love
feels like
that.
he wants. Yeah.
I love that so much. That's great.
Yeah, our son's
What's
biggest thing was he loved, oh my goodness, when I tell you he loved mashed potatoes. And, not even with the gravy or anything, he just loved mashed potatoes and butter was his thing. Like he even used to like whenever like it came the night that like mashed potatoes was being cooked, he would go like so excited around the house and be like mashed potatoes in the house. Like he would be so full on excited for mashed potatoes. We did jicama. We did jicama, and when I tell you, because it's still a root vegetable, it tastes so much like potato
Hmm.
that like you're even kind of shocked, like, oh, okay, like this is an acceptable version. Like, wow. Because I'm telling you, like literally once I basically like peeled off the skin, chopped it up, boiled it in some salted water, once it got soft, mashed up just like mashed potato, added the butter, salted it, and he didn't notice any difference.
That's great.
And I
I
didn't
love that.
say anything, and I had to be careful the way I was watching because I didn't want to be like helicopter and like
You're like,
so and be like that, like suspicious, like he's like, okay, like what's going on? But yeah, and he went in for like even seconds after that. So I think like if you stick to like the friendly stuff or like anyone that kind of feels like they might have like an aversion, it's kind of like almost like it was shared what Gail said. Just try it. Even if you have to go out there and find like the smallest like jicama, just try it because these are things like I never had jicama before prior to keto. I never had it before. I never even kind of like even heard of it until like I started joining like the different groups, watching all the, like the YouTube videos early on. But I never knew. But sure enough, it became a favorite over here. Here we have Scott sharing. We threw out a lot of little Debbies and such. Kids just didn't operate from a position of scarcity. Yeah, and that's the thing too when it comes to those packaged sweets. Those can be very, very tricky even for adults because they package them in like a way of convenience that even like a lot of the places that like I worked, I would see people showing up with like their little plastic wrapped like honey buns, like all like the little Debbie snacks and stuff like that. So it's not even like a kid's thing. Like that's the thing. Like a lot of the kids stuff trinkles to some of like our adulthood is very much so like what ends up happening. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that the cycle that goes on. Love it, portion control. Yep. Yep, if it's done the correct way with the correct mentality, absolutely. And here, Cristie share with Scott, my kids never have felt that they were in that scarcity mindset. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. I love how that word mindset was used because the mentality of this is truly, it has to have the proper approach. Scott sharing, I lived in the scarcity mode my whole young life, and it's been a challenge to this day. Internal discipline never really developed for me. My wife is the complete opposite, discipline for days. Yeah. And, we have to also think, when that discipline, it can't develop, or it's like sometimes hard to have like a grasp on it, we can't be hard on ourselves. Because then, of course, like putting that stress on ourselves causes like a whole ripple effect of other things as well. Um, so that's the thing. We kind of have to like work our way to it. Because I could tell you, like, my mentality at the beginning when I started keto over 5 years ago, and like my mentality now, I went through like a complete entire like renewal of my mentality. So we definitely go through phases, just because, I felt like I very much so like I had everything in control early on. I truly didn't. If I really evaluated what was going on, I didn't. And I had to accept, I couldn't be hard on myself about it. I had to take it as a learning experience and kind of say to myself, well, what are you going to do about it? Don't complain. Don't beat yourself up about it. Like, what are you going to do? Like, focus your time of pondering on what your next actions and steps are going to be. Did anyone want to touch on this right here? This topic when it comes to discipline?
Well, I would just say that after living in a house where I was in the Clean Your Plate Club and I was going to sit there till I ate whatever food I didn't like, I was going to sit there till I ate it or till it was bedtime. When I went to college, I ate so much stuff because mom wasn't there and I could have ice cream for breakfast if I wanted, and I could order pizza when I wanted, and I could eat that for breakfast too if I wanted. And I could eat Lucky Charms because I'm an adult now and I don't see my mom within 200 miles of me. And so I very much put on the freshman 15, 20, whatever it was, because I had no internal discipline, right? My mom had been my discipline. And then when that was gone, I didn't have it for myself. And it took me till the age of 47, to figure it out. So.
Yeah, it very much, that's the thing. It's like we can't even make anything be like an age thing because we all go through these phases throughout our entire life.
Right. when I was growing up, we didn't have all the snacks around the house all the time. So when my kids were little, I made sure I had things handy at the house. And it would be days where they wouldn't get touched because it was there and it was ready for them.
Mm,
I think if you keep it from them, that's when they want it more than if it's
yeah.
easily accessible.
Hmm.
And, but even right before we moved away with my 20-year-old granddaughter and my 40-year-old son, they would buy stuff and bring it in the house because I wasn't buying it.
Mm,
And it would
yeah.
sit. I'm like, why are you doing this?
Why are you even buying
And
it?
it's like you were saying, Cristie, about opening the Doritos. They would open them, eat a few. Now, if that was me years like you, they would have been gone. But
Mhm.
Yeah.
they could eat something, put them down. And I'm like, why do you get this stuff? But it's always been that way for them. It's always been there if they wanted something, and they didn't
Yeah.
gorge on it because it was always ready.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just the way. Now, when we would have something when I was growing up, if they would buy something,
Yeah.
it was gone the night we got it. It was like, that's it. So I
Yep.
didn't want that to happen with my kids. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make it available.
Right.
And if they wanted it, they could have it. If they didn't, that was fine. It's there. So, I think gorging on something because you don't have it,
Mm-hmm.
except once in a while, is way
Yeah.
worse than
Oh
having it
yeah.
right there
Mm-hmm.
for when you want something.
Yeah. Yeah. Because on that very much could be eating disorder. Like if they know that you don't agree with it coming in the house, they're gonna sneak behind your back and binge
Right.
on it.
Right. And this way they were, and I knew they were bringing it in the house
Mm-hmm.
because it would stay in the
Yeah.
kitchen. They weren't allowed to take it
Right.
downstairs or upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I could see it. It wasn't moving. It was still there. I'm like, why are you wasting your money? Because it was like, you're not even eating this stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
ladies,
my
I'm
oh,
really going to
sorry.
have to go because
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
just miserable. My throat is killing
Aw.
me. But
Okay, Cindy.
I'm going to go.
Yes. No. Absolutely.
And you guys enjoy the rest of the chat.
All right.
And
You as
Feel
everybody
well.
in the
better.
Later
chat, thank
soon.
Yeah.
you.
Definitely feel better. Focus on
Oh,
healing.
I need to.
No, absolutely. But thank you. Thank you for coming and hanging
I
out because we've
wasn't going to
already been
blow
on
it
for
off.
almost an hour.
Yeah,
You hung in there.
I tried. It was like,
Yeah, no,
but now it's
absolutely.
really getting sore. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we don't
all
want you
right.
to strain yourself and cause
Bye,
more problems.
everybody. Have a
Good
great night.
night.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Good night, Cindy. Oh,
Hmm. Hope she feels better.
yes. Oh, because her voice. Oh. I know
You know,
you
it's
answered this, Christy, in the chat, but I just
Mhm.
wanted to point this out because this is regarding your son that he didn't want regular food and this mentioning of he must be feeling so much better.
Yeah.
That right there, I wanted to definitely highlight that because, if they're old enough, like if they were going through something and they're old enough, they do get to that point where they're capable of kind of being in tune with their body to
Mhm.
know the difference from when they didn't feel so well to now like having a huge improvement.
Yeah. It's funny because as a teenager, he won't talk to me about exactly how he feels better. Like he's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's fine,
Yeah.
whatever. Like he has to be cool, right? He's just too cool for all of it.
I think it's a
And so
boy
yeah,
thing too.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
a boy thing.
But at the same time, you just watch this evidence, right? The
Yeah.
evidence is piling up. So after the first 30 days, he's not like, I'm going back to my French fries, and he didn't go back. He didn't go back to his oatmeal and his juice, which, I thought were healthy.
Mhm. Yeah.
He didn't go back to any of that stuff. He just kept going, and it wasn't a big deal. He didn't have to
Mhm.
think about it. He was like, yeah, I'm doing good. I'm used to the food now. Might as well keep going. That's what he said.
yay.
And then this, like I said, within the last 2 weeks, having these couple of challenges, He
Yeah.
didn't even blink. It didn't even
Mm.
seem hard. So it's like, I know.
Yeah.
And then just watching his behavior. So it's like, I know he's feeling better in there, and he's just, too cool to really elaborate
Yes.
on it. So maybe someday, maybe when he's in his 20s, someday he'll share a little more about, how he's feeling. But yeah, it was cool because, like I said, I really didn't push it. I just kind of wanted to see how he would choose to handle it. And
Smart.
he just blew it out of the water, like not even a problem.
Round of
So
That's
applause.
huge.
yeah, so he's feeling better. You just know he is. I just can't wait to someday if he chooses to open up about it. So, and there's your pixel sighting for the night, everyone.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I absolutely love that. Scott's saying, I'm living proof of that, washing pizza down with beer night after night. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of when we go through like that like moment of like perspective to like how much we ate before. And a lot of us now, like especially when it comes to our meat portion, like we definitely are packing down the meat. But like in the comparison of like the carbs that we were having, we were stuffing our faces with it, and then like shortly, like later on, we still wanted something else. We still
Oh,
wanted, like we still felt like, oh, there's room for dessert. There's
mhm.
room for like another snacky type of thing. Um, but then now, like, Cristie mentioned with your son, like taking the meat and sometimes that gets to be the point where like our eyes definitely deceive us of how much we really want to take. But it's like the protein, like just the meaty goodness is just so satiating that we're done. We are literally done. Like once we have like that meal, like you definitely feel done. Your mind is definitely off of food. So it really for sure like it changes your mentality completely. I think with you not even realizing that you focused on healing your mentality and your relationship with food when it comes to your mentality, it's like it automatically just kind of heals itself or gets itself into the progression of healing to have that better like relationship with food is what literally ends up happening.
Yeah, the stuff in the cupboard that's still there because my husband is still very standard American, as is
Yeah.
my older son. So there's still all the chips, all the ice cream, and it
Mhm.
doesn't even phase me that it's
You
there.
see?
Which
That's
still, when
huge.
I think about it, like I don't think about it except when I'm talking about it like this, but it
Right.
still blows my mind
Mhm.
because that stuff every night, would call my
Yeah.
name. And then to your point, Sana, I'd go and I'd have something salty, and then there
Right.
would still be room for something sweet, right? Because
Yeah.
you hit both of those things. And at night I would just binge on all of that stuff, and it's still there, but now that I'm eating all the meat, all the
Mhm.
fat, I don't care. I don't even think about it being there. um Usually if they
Yeah.
want something, they have to ask, because I won't even think to
Mhm.
get it or order it or whatever. Whereas before I would just kind of naturally order all the
Right.
things, or go shop
Oh,
for all
yeah.
the things because I was eating them too. um and now it's like they have to tell me, like, oh, we need this or that.
Yeah.
So it definitely changes your mindset about food. And I think my younger son, Zach, is learning that too, because yeah, he'll say that. He'll go like, I always forget how filling this stuff is.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
um, so
And that's
it's
the greatest thing too, because you do have like the older one that is now eating this way, and then like the peer influence or like the sibling influence is huge.
yeah, it's actually the younger one that's eating this way, and hopefully he will impact his big brother.
Yeah.
His big brother also has ADHD. It's not as maybe as
Cool.
severe in some ways.
Right, right.
Um, I brought it up to him a couple of times. This has helped your brother with his ADHD. What do you think? And he just kind of
Mhm.
smiles at me and doesn't. He's not.
Yeah.
It's like,
interested.
I like ice cream, Mom.
Yeah, at this
No, I'm
time,
good.
yeah. Sometimes if I make like the chicken nuggets or the chicken
Uh-huh.
tenders or the carnivore pizza, he does like them. I say, look,
Oh,
there's
good.
all these things just like this. You see how you're enjoying these, and
Right,
you
yeah.
know, who knows? I'll keep chipping away at it. Maybe he'll decide
Mhm.
to give it a shot.
You never know. You never know. He might end up surprising you.
He might.
I was just thinking about so my husband and I, we end up talking about food a lot
Hmm.
because I we think that the reason why my husband has ulcerative colitis is because, which is very severe. Like, if you guys don't know, watching, my husband's almost died 4 times.
Mm.
He's gone through feeding tubes. Even one of the feeding tubes got infected once, and he
Oh
was,
my goodness.
having, it was awful. And so he's still suffering with the repercussions of, and he grew up in a household where there was stuff all the time, like
Hmm.
all the different snacks and stuff, and he could eat it whenever he wanted. And so I can believe I completely forgot about this, but it's like, my husband has a very high metabolism, and
Hmm.
he's very hungry all the time. Like, the first time ever that he felt full was when he started eating carnivore. And he's like, or even keto. No, it was first keto, because we
Right.
had made burgers, but then we had the cheese, the mayonnaise, and then we wrapped it in lettuce. That was like the first meal where he was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm full." And he didn't understand that, because he used to eat like a bag of chips like
Mhm.
this big. He'd eat it in a sitting. He was one of those video gamers. He'd play a video game, eat, 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 and it just became this, like, you
Yeah.
know, symbiotic relationship almost.
Right,
Like, if
right,
you
right,
play
yeah.
games, he had ice cream. If you play games, he had pizza, or all
Mhm.
those things that we try to avoid now. And so my husband sees my daughter; they're very similar. Like, I think she takes after him a lot. And so we see her high metabolism and how
Mhm.
active she is and how gifted she is with her movements. Like, it's kind of crazy. We think we're gonna put the kids in judo, because they're just, my husband does judo. They're just so graceful, and like, she's very, well, not so much my son. He takes after me. He's a bit more klutzy, but we think he's so strong, like bull, because he's literally has like packed on muscles. So we think he'll probably, maybe he'll do American wrestling, but I don't know. But so I think it's funny that him and I, because we're raising the same kids, but
Mhm.
we both have those different like environments where it was like, I ate all my food and I was happy, and I rarely ate any kind of sweet things at all. Like, I would
Yeah.
let my Halloween candy rot in the closet, and my mom would take some, and she'd take it on her way. I was more like a savory food kind of thing. I didn't
Right.
start liking dessert until I worked at a bakery, and I was making all of them, and then I started sneaking them. Like, oh, these went bad. Just start eating. It was really bad for me personally, but yeah, so there's sometimes, even having all this stuff, if you're not fueling your body with the right things, you're still going to be hungry. But I'm so
Mhm.
glad that you guys are not in that situation, because I really think that the food that my husband ate is what caused his ulcerative colitis, and he's doing better, for the most part, but still
Yeah.
relying on medicine because the damage has been done.
Mhm.
So we're just trying to prevent that for our kids, and I think that's why we're so stressed out about it. I feel like I talk about it all the time, because it's like, I don't want them to grow up with having UC, and going through that, or
Right.
obesity like me, and panic attacks constantly, and
Yeah,
not being
yeah.
able to function. It's just like, it's a lot. I think, they say ignorance is bliss. Sometimes I wish I didn't know
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah, and that's very much so, because I think that also kinda gets to be, like, the slippery slope, like what you're
Yeah.
saying when it comes to the knowledge. Like, for me, I had to naturally, like, cut my social media time, like, my screen time,
Yeah.
because I have, my screen time that I have at work, and, sometimes just, like, naturally, like, sometimes, like, I would get into, like, working, like, 9 to 10-hour days, and then because my employer, they don't offer overtime right now, so I've been having to, like, deduct, from, like, my hours by the end of the week to not go overtime, to go beyond, 40 hours for the week, but I have all that screen time. Then it's like my kids, they homeschool full time, so then I have the screen time with them. So I think, like, screen time in itself, like, I try to minimize, but also more so, like you're saying, the knowledge part of things, I had to be really careful because I was kind of really getting really deep into like because I don't know about everybody else, but like if you end up watching a video, regardless of whose, video it is, and you hear like all these topics and stuff, I research it. I go and I dig deep into the research and I'm just like, oh wow, like the light bulb goes off, like, oh, like I never heard this before. Like I want to find out more about it. And then you start researching, and then it could be such a slippery slope because then it's like you now have this knowledge, and it's kind of almost like putting kind of like that fear in you. Like,
Yeah.
kind of like you're mentioning, Ellie, like, with what your husband went through, because like he went through it in like such a severe way. Um, and that's very much so like how I feel about our second child. Like with what our first child went through with the seizures, here I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, like I need to nip this right away. So that's why he literally was having breast milk and was on the ketogenic diet early on. Because I said, you know what? I'm not even going to have him try anything standard American diet. Like I'm going to try to,
Mhm.
and it was sad in a way because I kind of very much felt like I had to shelter him. And it's like, what kind of way of life is that for him? What kind of way of life is that for me? Because I'm having to now, kind of be like too overprotective as a parent. So I think it is a slippery slope knowing too much because then it's like we're always kind of like having that in the back of our mind, like, oh, we got to prevent this. Oh, we got to be more
That's
strict on
me.
ourselves. And that's the thing. It's like constantly, it's like compartmentalized in the back of our head. It's like we
Mhm.
file that information away and it's constantly like playing back like over and over again, like a broken, tape recorder. And it's difficult. It's difficult because, you kind of want to feel like you want to, grow with your knowledge. Um, but then again, it could also be a not so good thing as well, like in
Double-edged
my own
sword, right?
experience. Yes, it's very, very tricky. But Charlie's sharing, I think the clean your plate belief is still engraved into me. Very rarely do I let steak or brisket become leftovers. I mean, I would definitely say at least it's steak or brisket that you're going overboard with. And also, as long as you're not getting sick. If like you're not causing like a constant where you're overdoing it and here like you're feeling crummy later on after doing this. I mean, it's no biggie to me at least. Do either of you want to touch on this like as far as, getting to the point where like you're still having, your meaty plate and you're still kind of just, doing the clean your plate mentality?
I mean, I don't know if I have much to add to that. It is like that for me, though. If I cook a
Mhm.
big ribeye, I'm going to eat the big ribeye. Like, there's not
Yeah.
going to be leftover ribeye for sure. For sure.
Yes.
If I want to have leftover bacon because like I need it for something later, I have to make extra. Like if there's not going to be leftover bacon, I
Mhm.
have to prepare extra bacon,
Yeah.
for that purpose. So I maybe some of that is still there, you know.
I like to cook a lot so I can
Yeah.
be lazy later. That's why I have leftovers. That's
Mm.
it. I like to
Yeah.
make a lot so we can just heat it up and because
Right.
carnivore foods take a little longer. I'm sorry, like
Yes.
15 minutes longer than like, cooking
Mhm.
something in the microwave. But
Right.
because sometimes kids are like, I'm hungry, and you just need to have
Yeah.
food ready, and they can't wait
On
20
hand.
minutes for a whole meal to be done. So
Yeah.
I make
No,
leftovers. I
absolutely.
enjoy
Like,
it.
especially when you have little ones, certain
Yeah.
cuts of meat, if you do overcook it, they're not the very best anymore, that the taste is just not the same, texture is definitely not the same.
Mhm.
So to be able to kind of take care of like that cooking to make sure like it's done right the first time, because there's definitely like a lot going on in the household, like especially when you do have young ones, that kind of committing that time to just prep everything all in one day versus having to commit that time like day after day after day. It gets to be tricky, like with the little ones especially, kind of just running around the house and wanting your undivided attention. It definitely makes things a lot more easier. Last day of normal sharing. I'm totally triggered by my child's pickiness.
Yes, and more
Yeah.
yes.
I just chose not to be with my son.
That's
We
good.
had, so my older son has a very severe peanut allergy. When we initially had him
Oh.
tested, they told us that it was a level 4. And I was like, oh, so like on a scale of 1 to 10, they're like, oh no, a scale of 1 to 4. And I'm like, oh, so basically the worst peanut allergy
Oh my
humanly
goodness.
possible is what
Wow.
he had. So, I mean,
Ooh.
because of that and because of his texture issues, which
Yeah.
although he's not the one diagnosed with the sensory
Right.
integration, he still did have some of that. And then when my younger one came along with all of the texture issues, I was like, all right, I'm just not fighting the food battle. The only time it got weird was when we go to other people's houses because
Mhm.
then they thought different things should be happening, right?
Yeah.
And then I would hear about it, about whatever my parenting, whatever their opinion of my parenting and what my kids would and wouldn't eat and whatever.
Yeah.
That's the only time when there was an issue, I would say. But yeah, I just
Right.
chose because it wasn't just only pickiness, right? Some of it was allergy related, some of it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
texture issue related. And I just thought, this is a battle I don't want to fight. So I'm just
Yeah.
not going to fight it. If that means that he's eating pureed foods when he's 2
Yeah.
and 3 years old, I guess that's what it means.
Yeah.
Because he was legitimately throwing up when given
Mhm.
anything with texture to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, other people would look from the outside and be like, you're just not, you're just
Mhm.
allowing him to just be a baby
No.
and all this stuff. And it's like, he's
It's a
No.
growing
medical
up.
condition.
It was a
Yeah.
medical
Getting
thing. Yeah.
That's
yeah,
different.
especially when it comes to
So
getting sick. Oh my gosh.
yeah. So he wasn't diagnosed until after
Mhm.
that. So maybe
Yeah.
that was part of it, not having the diagnosis in my hot little hand, as they
Right.
say.
Right.
But it was just I did try, but even sometimes I'd hear it from my husband and I'd be like, hey, if you want to try to train him to eat
Mhm.
XYZ, then you go right ahead, but don't
Yeah.
put it on me. But
That's so hard.
but I was triggered by it for a long time. You would try because it's like
Yeah.
people eat. Like, what's wrong with you? Eat.
Oh my gosh.
Until
And
I
it's like
just
if they
had to
only knew like what was happening truly behind closed doors. I
right.
think that's the thing. Like I think in society, like it's so easy for people to be judgmental when they don't know like the whole story.
Mhm.
And some, it could also come across like they're doing it innocently because, they care. So they feel like, they do have the right to chime in because here they're like, oh, well, I'm a caring person. But then
Mhm.
again, it's like that caring can come across doing
Mhm.
like more harm than good because they can, make you feel like guilty about something which you really don't have any reason to feel guilty of. Like you're doing what you need to do for your child, like period. And only you're going to understand that as the parent first and, firsthand understand like what you're having to do more so than
Yeah.
any outsider can
Yeah.
vouch on behalf of.
Yeah, they weren't there at the meal table. They never saw him
Mhm.
actually throw up, so they just thought
Mm.
he's just being dramatic. She's just
Yeah.
being permissive,
Wow.
kind
Mm.
of thing.
I'm going to try to play catch up here because we're a little bit behind in the
I know for
chat.
sure there've been a couple of questions, just if you wanted to find them.
Jump around. Let me see.
I don't have timestamps for you. Sorry. I would have starred them, but I can't because I'm just a guest here. But
We don't have the power.
I don't have the power. So Gail Ivy at 4:19. So I guess that'd be 7:19 your
See my
time.
time. Here we go. So Gil is asking, how have any of you taken nystatin for a fungal infection in the gut since going carnivore? I just started and it's making hungry all day long, no matter how much I eat. So have either of you had an experience with
No, I
nystatin?
haven't. I saw her question. I was hoping someone else would have had that experience and could help her. Gail, is that one of the side effects on that medication? Maybe that's a
Yeah,
side effect of that medication and it's to be expected because you're taking it. But I've
yeah,
never taken that, so no, I haven't had that
yeah.
experience.
Yeah, that's also sparking my curiosity as well. Um, is to kind of I would find out like even if you have to kind of do like your own research, I know that could also be a slippery slope,
Oh
when
yeah.
we kind of rely on the internet. Sometimes we find out stuff like we really did not want to know. But I would say like more so like see if you could even like search on YouTube. So you're kind of trying to focus on seeing if anyone, like if any of the health professionals in the proper human diet community had spoke on behalf of this topic, I would more so want to watch one of their videos instead of just kind of dabbling in just kind of like some of the other healthcare professionals that might have their videos out there because that's definitely going to come with a whole different perspective. Um, but yeah, that's what I would also be curious about as well. Like Christie's mentioning, if that's a possible side effect.
I would
Because, with
also, I
some of
don't,
these
I,
medications, there's a laundry list
mm,
of
yeah.
side effects.
If you can find one of the keto or carnivore doctors on a small channel, sometimes they'll do that.
Mhm.
So I know like when Dr. Hampton, he was being interviewed on a small channel and it was way back when I was doing my blood work. And I asked, didn't have to do a super chat or anything. I thought this is a small channel. There's not a lot of people watching. I'm just going to ask my question. And he sure enough answered it. So if you can find something like that, Gail, you might get your
Yeah.
question answered by one of the doctors in our space.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, because I know even, like, for Dr. Chafee, some of
Mhm.
his chats can get really wild, but luckily, he was on a smaller channel live, and he was able to, like, freely focus on answering some questions. So whoever was in that chat definitely was spoiled because they were able to get multiple questions
Yeah,
answered by him.
yeah. And
So
then
yeah, that's definitely a good point.
Maribel at 4:36. So
Alright,
7:36. She didn't mark it with a QQ. She's
scrolling.
asking for our thoughts.
Let's see here. 7:36. There we go. I have a hard time hearing carnivore heals all. I don't doubt, but I just have a hard time. What are your thoughts? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Ellie.
Um, I think that although I do think that anything on the proper human diet can really help with many, many
Mhm.
illnesses, autoimmune conditions, help you lose weight, get that inflammation out, repair mitochondria. I think metabolic health is one of the most important things that if you can regain and you figure out exactly how to do that with your food and not through medication. And I think it seems like a lot, doesn't it? It seems like
Mhm.
this miracle treatment. It's like the guy selling snake oil outside. He's like, "Oh, here, buy this. This will solve everything." It does feel like that sometimes. And I think that you have to get to a point in your life where you're desperate enough to try it because you know you could rely, like, for me, I was on antidepressants for 5-6 years. And although and then I ended up stopping it because I was like, this is not helping. And I dropped out of college, I stopped working, and I just stayed home. I watched videos all day, and I just laid in my bed for another 5 years. There's so many 5 years in my life. I find the number 5 comes up a lot in my life. But so that's a side note. But I feel like you have to get to a point where you're willing to try anything, because
Mhm.
the advice that is usually given by medical
Right.
professionals or even just your loved ones is usually not helpful, or it
Mm.
doesn't apply to you. Like my grandma, she grew up always being able to moderate her food. Like I see her eating like the tiniest of meals, and I'm like looking at her. I'm like, I know as you get older, you lose like some of your taste buds, and think
Mhm.
food becomes more difficult to eat sometimes. But like I feel like my whole life, she's like, I eat it this time, I eat it this time, I eat this time, I have this snack, and this is my portion. And I grew up watching her
Right.
do that,
Yeah.
and like, so if you can do that, more power to you. But I think that you just have to get to a point where you're willing to try anything. And being on the proper human diet seems to work, because when you eat your species appropriate diet, you feel better. Like, have you ever read The Hungry Caterpillar? If you haven't in a while, he eats all sorts of things. He eats, like all the berries and the fruits, and he's still hungry. He's still hungry. He's still hungry. I read this book to my kids every day, so it's like very ingrained in my mind. And then there's one day where he eats everything: a chocolate cake, ice cream, a lollipop, pie, a sausage, and he had a stomach ache. And then the next day he eats his leaf and he feels better. And I think that can help our gut heal. And so I hope that's encouraging to you. I know it just seems like magic, but it's not. It's what we need to eat to feel better. I think that's a big role in healing.
So I 100% agree with everything Ellie just said. So ditto to that. Ditto. That shows my age. Yes.
Ditto.
I remember real dittos. Anyway, but I will also add this, that I think especially since around the 1970s, and I've seen a lot of videos focusing on this, one particularly even today from Jason Fung, looking back even at photos from the 1970s, like there's not an overweight looking person to be found. And it was before all the dietary guidelines for Americans. It was before the low fat craze. Nobody was really counting calories or any of that. And yet you still don't see, overweight, sick, inflamed people walking around, generally speaking. And so I think fast forward to now, where, what is it, like 93% of us in the United States have some part of the metabolic syndrome. That's just crazy. That means we're almost all of us, are sick, but it's because of the diet. And so fixing the diet can fix all of that. Now, does it heal 100% of everything? And if you're carnivore, you're invincible? No, that's when Ellie came in tonight. She said that, like, carnivore does not make you invincible. No. We just had a stomach bug, and so, yeah. For me personally, it was, my relationship with food, as well as my, my binging and restricting cycles. Always feeling hungry, just living hungry 24 hours a day, and just like willpowering myself to not eat so I wouldn't get fat, and then binging on, all the chips and ice cream when I just couldn't do that for one more second. For me, that's what it helped me to fix. And that's down to satiety hormones, right? Like my satiety hormones and all that were so messed up from doing that. I did it to myself, right? And eating the proper food fixed it. So my take on is, it's not just that it's 100% cure all for everything.
Yes.
But it's that so much of our sickness, whether it be diabetes and all of the, the inflammation, all that stuff, right? It's because the diet is the problem. The diet is also the solution. So I think that's why it gets, you hear that a lot, because it does fix so much of the problem that we here in America and much of the world, now are dealing with and looking at. So that's what I would add to Ellie's excellent answer.
Ditto.
Yes. I'm going to definitely,
Ellie, for dittos.
well, I'm going to come with the ditto as well, because you both definitely made such great points, because I absolutely agree, because we got to think of it this way. Heals all. I mean, all would be like, there would no longer be anything out there that anybody would be fighting when it comes to anything, like any irritations, ailments, diseases. So it's hard to completely delete and eliminate everything. Does it greatly reduce? Absolutely. Because, we have to remember, we still have some that are so strict on carnivore, like to the point that they don't even use any seasonings other than salts. So some don't even incorporate dairy at all. And guess what? They have reduced their medications, but there's still those medications that their body is dependent on. So very much so. Did they heal a lot? Oh, absolutely. Because when you hear that somebody was on, dozens of medications, and then they're down to like just 2, that is a huge change for their life, for their lifestyle, for their mentality. Because I can't even imagine, thankfully, like I've never had to be reliant on any medication. So like I can't even imagine having to take, like some of these people mentioned like dozens of different medications they were taking, and some of them they have to take more than one pill. So I can't even imagine like what that like, I'm sure at a certain point in time after taking it for so many years, it becomes second nature, but still in the beginning, I can't even imagine what it does to somebody's mentality to have to be on that kind of medication for such a long period of time, because even like now that they're able to come off on it, it's difficult for them to come to the realization that they're not having to take these particular medications every single day, because still very much so, it's shocking for them that they healed enough that they don't have to take those particular medicines. But I would definitely say there's still a lot that is going to still linger, um, but it could be to the point where it's not as bad, which is still a huge win in itself, because it heals somewhat, maybe not all the way, or maybe the body just needs time. Because, we also have to remember that a lot of us are still considered newbies. Regardless of how
Yeah.
much time we've been on the proper human diet, I would say if you have not been on it for probably like a decade or longer, we're still considered newbies, big time. And still yet, the body can take literally all of that time to truly heal. Because we have to think of, look how many decades we were on the standard American diet. So that's also very telling as well that everything might not possibly be able to heal, because every single day we still do a lot of damage to our bodies. Because still yet, like for me, like there's times that like I push myself because there's so much, work to get done at my full-time job. I got so much stuff going on with my kids homeschooling, then you got like all like the housely duties and stuff like that. And do I push my body to the extreme more so than I should? Yeah, like that's different damage that I'm doing to my body every single day, pushing it beyond probably what its limitations are. So those are like things like every single day we're doing stuff to our body. So like can that slow down whatever like progression I could have to feeling like fully healed? Yeah, absolutely. Um, but like just like Ellie touched on when she came in the chat, I am now like I can sleep like within seconds. Like literally, I go brush my teeth, wash my face, I hit that pillow and I'm knocked out. But then you have some carnivores where like, I have so much energy, I can keep going. And it's like, well, no, like my body and mentally, I'm exhausted. Thankfully, the way of eating is allowing me to be able to sleep. Like that is a good thing. I should not be
Mhm.
feeling bad because my body can now quickly fall asleep. Like I no longer suffer from insomnia. So the thing is, even when it comes to healing, there could also be different perspectives of healing, because that
That's
other
true.
person, their perspective is like, I have so much energy. Like, I feel like this is my healing. And then here, I'm a quick sleeper and I stay asleep the whole entire night. With pregnancy now, I do like wake up early morning to go use the bathroom because of how much water I drink throughout the day. So, yeah,
Yes.
do I have that? But I'm telling you, as soon as like I literally get back to bed, I'm knocked out like all over again, as
Mhm.
if I like never even like woke up.
That's great.
But it's
That's
also different
amazing.
perspectives as well. Like that's the thing as well. Like what does healing look like for you? Is
Mhm.
also like the other kind of question like you have to ask yourself. So, but very, very good points from everybody, because no, absolutely, it's not going to be the cure all. Even though, some might give that perspective, it's definitely not the cure all. And, it's sometimes kind of bad to label it as such, because then I feel like some like beat themselves up because then they think like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not healing, I must be doing something wrong. But there could be so many different things going on with that. It's not that you're just doing anything wrong, it's just everybody's body is different. We were all uniquely made, so we're all going to
Mhm.
uniquely heal on our
Absolutely.
body's own timeline because we definitely all did different damage to our body. So I would definitely say it's difficult to hear that it heals all. You just have to focus on like your own perspective of that.
And
Ditto.
Maribel, I would like to add that I'm very glad you brought that up, Maribel. When I saw that, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
we have to
Mhm.
make sure to talk about this because
It's
Yeah, no,
great.
that's
I
a very
sometimes
great
feel that way
question.
too, that it's not always,
Mhm.
realistically stated. I
Yeah.
definitely think it's the proper human diet and
Mhm.
it's done so many wonderful things for me and I'm so much
Right.
better. Is my life perfect? No.
Mm-mm.
Is my
No.
body perfect? No. No.
Exactly.
Um, it's much improved though,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, even like that's why I try to only because like I feel like it's important for me like the way like, terminology wise, but like even for like my mental health. I don't consider like my mental health even though like I've came such like a far way with my mental health
Mhm.
healing. I still consider my mental health still in a progress of continuing to heal because I want to feel like I'm continuously like a work in progress with it. Because, it's difficult because once you kind of get to that mentality where you're feeling like, oh, I healed it, I don't got to worry about it no more. But no, like with your mentality, that's something like you always want to work at. Because there's so many aspects of this that when it comes to your mentality, like we were talking about, like portion wise, you have to have a certain mentality about that. You have to have a certain mentality when it comes to triggers that are around you. Um, you have to have the mentality of knowing that you're deserving of focusing on these proper human diet foods. If you do have like a slip up, don't beat yourself up about it. Just get right back on track with whatever you can do, like with that very next meal, with that very next day. There's so many aspects to having to keep your mental health in check. So even for something like that, I would never consider myself completely healed because I want to make sure like I keep that constant like healing focus and keep that kind of like that perspective for myself that I have to keep my mentality strong and in a healthy place compared to where it was before because for me I didn't acknowledge it. It was very much like on the back burner. I did not acknowledge that I did have mental health problems. So to kind of keep myself like in perspective and keep that constant reminder, I think is really important. When you're on a healing journey, is to always keep yourself like very much like in tune with what you're focusing on healing. So I believe we catch up with all the questions. I'm going to go ahead and touch on like these last comments to get them highlighted because we've been going for about like an hour and 37 minutes. And I want to respect everybody's time, especially our guest. So last day of normal saying carnivore will make so many things better, but it won't resolve everything. A paralyzed person in a wheelchair won't get up and walk, but they will be better off eating the proper human diet.
Yep.
Exactly. It's not going to change, the situation that they're in because, they are paralyzed. But if they, for example, if they are overweight and they have somebody caretaking for them, I'm sure that person would appreciate for them to come down to like a bearable size to be more of like a comfort situation to be able to help them a lot better. So that's the thing. It's like kind of like helping yourself. You could end up helping those like around you to make it kind of even like more easy for you to be the type of person that it's comfortable to live with you kind of situation. But no, I'm happy that you touched on that. So this is just answering for Gail's question. Here we have BK. You came in when a lot of the chatter was going on, so welcome, welcome. I'm proud to be a carnivore rookie. Yeah, and I think very much so. Like that's a lot of us. Like for me, Cristie and Ellie can speak on behalf of their opinion about this for themselves. But for me, I would always consider myself a rookie because honestly, like I would never consider myself like a carnivore or like a proper human diet expert because still yet, like over 5 years later on the proper human diet, there's still so much stuff that's coming about, like so much new information. That's why you even see like Dr. Barry, such like a common name in the community. He even has to go through and update his videos. He has to put like year updates on them to even, validate that that information is still current and up to date and that it's accurate. Only because things do change so much. And imagine like he's a healthcare professional and he's a popular healthcare professional in this community. And for him to have to go back on his information, imagine how all of us are with the information that we know, if he's even having to go back and backtrack. Did either of you want to touch on that?
I still feel like I'm a rookie. And if, like I said earlier in this live stream, if you count my keto months, I'm over a year. So not even, I mean, you're 5 times longer than me, Sana. But like you said, it's like I don't even think I figured out what macros my body likes the best. Some days I'm thinking about protein, some days I'm thinking I don't have enough fat. um for being a woman and hormones and all that stuff that you hear about, I wonder, should I be supplementing iodine? It seems like every
Hmm.
day somebody comes out with something new
Yeah.
about that. And so, it's like you said, it's always learning something. And I think the N=1, the longer I'm in it, the more I realize the N=1 thing is just very, very true. And I
Right.
think it takes a long time to sort of dial it in exactly for some of us. I know I find that to be true for myself. And, but yet I'm glad that my feet are on the path, right? That I'm on the journey,
Yeah.
and I know that I'm much better off for it. So who knows? And then as you continue getting older as well, my body's going to change. So I might dial it in for a second, and then I might hit menopause, and then have to readjust everything. So I just think that's part of being human.
Did you have anything to touch on that, Ellie, as far as
Um,
the status of feeling like a rookie?
yeah, I think that with any to be able to admit that you don't know everything shows that you have humility, and that's a really important skill to have, especially I think if you're like, I hate saying it, but we're influencers, I guess technically. If you're an influencer online and you're sharing your story, it can seem like, maybe as a viewer you don't know as much as we do, but we're learning just as much as you do, as you are. And I'm so glad you're proud to be a carnivore rookie, because that just shows that you're always willing to learn.
Yeah, very, very, very true. So I don't see any other questions coming through. I know I addressed this in the chat, but Scott,
Me
he
too.
was
I did too. We love
apologizing.
Scott. No
Yes.
We
way.
love it.
No, never ever apologize. Your existence is so entirely valued, because you guys have to think, I for me, it does not bother me. Like these lives can get to be lengthy because it's so important to me to highlight like everybody, because your presence is so important to me, especially on a Friday night, because you could be doing anything with your Friday night,
Mhm.
especially, those of us that like have such hectic schedules, that Friday night is like your unwinding time and that family time. So no, we absolutely wholeheartedly appreciate anyone's presence when you guys show up for us all, because that definitely gives us that motivation and encouragement to keep going with our content and with whatever lives we do. So no, absolutely no apology needed at all. But everyone, with that being said, we definitely wholeheartedly appreciate you all. Oh, here we have Tom Garvey, the keto cook, coming in.
Oh,
He
hey,
also
Tom.
has a channel. So anyone that has a channel, feel free to mention in the chat that you have a channel. That way everyone can go and support you as well. But Tom Garvey, he has a channel as well, and he cooks chef style. So definitely go
Ooh,
ahead and check him out because he has
cool.
some amazing recipes that he throws down. And then here, oh, okay, off to Carnivore Kips tomorrow. So Carnivore Kip is having a meetup, is what he's speaking on
Yeah.
behalf of. All right, everyone. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And thank you so much to our guest, Cristie and Ellie. I appreciate you both being here
Thank
so,
you.
so much. And to Cindy as well. We're definitely going to send her our healing vibes so she can get better. But everyone, definitely enjoy the rest of your evening and have a wonderful, blessed weekend.
Bye. Love you
everyone.
all. Thanks for listening.